very exciting.
Wow. So you all are in good company tonight.
This is where we should have some like great music or something, you know, we could sing, but probably not the best idea. I think the response to this though does just demonstrate the continued hunger in our society and in the church for us as followers of Jesus to lean in to the challenges of race. Oh, there's music, by the way.
Yeah, look at that. So we got a question here in the chat. I can see, will this be recorded with the ability to share with others? Absolutely, Brandon. Yes, we will be recording the first hour of this, and then we'll have Q&A that will come afterwards. So yes, we will be recording this.
And I
Patty,
think
hello.
Yeah, and I think we're going to be sharing the recording link with the email that comes out after this, the thank you email. You'll get a link to that Zoom recording. So feel free to watch it. Feel free to share it. That's why we're doing this. Not everybody can be here tonight. So.
That's right. It's awesome. Because the chat is opened up, if you are on the line, go ahead and chat us. Oh, it only comes to the panelists, so you won't see it. But if you want to chat us, we'd still love to hear where you're from. So if you don't mind putting your name in the chat and where you're from, and maybe we can give a couple shout outs on our end as people do that.
It's like Brandon's checked in, Patty, and it sounds like Patty and Mark are here, and you must know them, Chuck.
I know them well.
Awesome.
I know
Cheryl,
them well.
Dottie and Glenn, Ryan and Leslie, John. We have, it looks like Silverton's in the house. I did see, wasn't Silverton where the Vaximilian winner was last week?
It is. It is. Yes. So, St. Louis, Missouri, Woodlands, Texas is in the house tonight. Someone
Luke,
from Michigan.
Yeah, I know Luke. Welcome, Luke. That's Linda great. And Dan Neal from Cincinnati.
Flint, Michigan. Eileen, welcome.
Yeah, good to see you, Eileen. Golf Manor.
That's great.
And Sherry went through, must have been the first year of Undivided in 2016.
I think it was. Yeah, absolutely. Burlington, Kentucky in the house. Covington, got people coming in from New York, Green Lawn, New York, Victoria. Great to have you with us.
Oh yeah, I think I talked to Victoria yesterday. So good to see you, Victoria.
Very neat. Very neat. We will also be introducing these other lovely faces that you see with us as soon as we get started. These are our amazing panel tonight and folks that are going to help you really get a taste and a flavor for the Living Undivided experience. So glad to have them with us tonight.
And we're going to
give it another minute here.
Yeah, about one more minute. We'll get officially started. So
yes, we can. Good deal. Wow, we got Irvine, California, Tucson, Arizona, double duty and double states. Michelle with us tonight. That's great. That's so good. Well, it is 7 o'clock and we want to honor your time. So I'm Chuck Mingo. I am the CEO and founder of Undivided, actually co-founder with incredible folks like Troy Jackson, and so honored that you would join us tonight to learn more about Living Undivided. Now, I know some of you have done Living Undivided. Maybe you're here because you want to have this as a way to share with other people what's new, what's going on, how can we get involved. But whether you've done it before or not, we're just really happy that you're here. And so in addition to me being on, I want to have my co-founder, Troy, introduce himself as well.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. One of the highlights of the last several years of my life has been partnering with you and the wonderful folks at Undivided. And so, yeah, I'm here as a co-founder and part of the team. So we get to labor together with a wonderful team of folks. And yeah, excited to be here and excited to hear about the 6 folks who are going to be modeling some of the breakouts we're going to do.
That's exactly right. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves. We've invited folks who've been through the Living Undivided experience. Many of them are facilitators of the experience and wanted them to be able to kind of give you a sense of what it's like to be in the discussion on a typical week. And so I'm just going to call out the names. And if you could just kind of say hello and tell folks where you're tuning in from. So John, I'll start with you, John Albritton.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Albritton hail from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Awesome. Thank
Pleasure
you, John.
to meet you.
Thank you, John. Latoya.
Hey, everybody. I'm Latoya. I'm from Toledo, Ohio, but I live here in Cincinnati. Excited to be with you all this evening.
Mm-hmm. Brian.
Brian Dershaw from Columbus, Ohio, but live in Cincinnati.
All right. Jazzy.
Hello, everybody. This is Jazzy Buchanan here. I'm from Cincinnati, but I live in Columbus, Ohio. So just happy to be here.
Awesome. Donna.
Everybody, I'm Donna Dressman, and I'm from Cincinnati, but I'm currently living in Kentucky. Go figure that out.
Awesome. And Denise.
Hi, everybody. I'm Denise DeStassi, and I'm from Cincinnati, but I live in Loveland, which I know is still Cincinnati. Glad to be here.
So glad to have all of you with us. And they're going to be kind of modeling that experience, so you'll get to hear from them a bit later on. But let me open up tonight with a word of prayer. And as I do that, I just want to recognize that all of us would say that 2020 has once again brought our country to a moment of reckoning as it relates to race. And what I want you to know is tonight, you're being invited into something that's rolling up sleeves and doing the hard work of taking that reckoning and turning it to hope. And you're going to see that as we look at the new content that we have for Undivided, what the experience is like, some of the artistic pieces that are a part of it. And I want to encourage you to ask your questions in the chat, because we are going to have a time at the end to do that. So in the chat, which is opened up, as we go through the night, if there's something that strikes you, if you have questions now, you can go ahead and put those in the chat. I want to invite you to do that because we will be answering those questions at the end of our time. So with that said, let me open up with a word of prayer. God, I do thank you for the hope that I have found in being a part of this movement and on this journey called Living Undivided. And I pray tonight that hope would spread. And as people get a sense, maybe for the first time or maybe once again, of what it is that you're doing through this experience, I pray that they would begin to be opening up their eyes to the invitation you're giving them to live into their values through this incredible journey. And God, we do pray that you would honor their time and their commitment to listen to what it is that you are saying in this moment. We're excited for them to be here. Bless this time in Jesus' name. Amen.
See, black is proud, black is beautiful. From the top of the thick hair, way down to the toe cuticles. Black is smart, black is educated. Because if you ask me to shoot 10 jump shots right now, nope, I know I would make it. Hence why I'm here rapping like Snoop. So don't ask me to make a catch, because I'll probably drop it like it's hot. Don't even ask me to make some collard greens, because I'll probably burn a pot. See, everything that you thought I probably was, I'm probably not. Except black. I woke up today, black. But there ain't no problem, I can deal with it. See, on the days I get my hair cut, I feel as sharp as Shannon. Other days I want time to stop because life is hard to manage. When the street's on fire, we want peace of quality and something to fan with it on. Every single day that ends with the letter Y, I want to be free. See, a fool despises wisdom, but I'm in need of some change. I'm worth more than being called a token. I'm less than a man above or more than a white woman's fetish. See, nothing I'm saying here is to be joked with. This year proved more than ever how much disparity there still is. And as a black man, I'm gonna tell you what we want. And we want awareness that leads to fairness. And we want the hate to decease so we can obtain peace. For a lot of nights I had to weep so I can get some sleep. See, these tears of pain ain't nothing to be played with, and that's all because equality is something we still gotta debate with. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow, and if I do, I'll be back again. But that's no problem. Because see, this time I got hope. And the reason why is because I know we're in this together. See, I knew we were in this together, even when the world was brought down to its knees. Want to know why? Because y'all like chicken and I love cheese. See, we all love Dave Chappelle. We all love sports, even though we might not all be able to play them well. Y'all don't make fun of me because I can't swim. I don't make fun of y'all because y'all can't touch the rim. It's all good. It's all good. But no, that was me being corny with an attempt to be a comedian. I tried it, but this is me standing here with dreams reimagined in a world that's undivided.
So with that, you get a little bit of a sense of some of the artistic elements that are now part of the Living Undivided experience that get sprinkled in week by week. What we're going to do tonight after a brief setup is actually take you through about 40 minutes of what an undivided experience will be like. We'll hear some biblical teaching from Chuck. We'll have a small group breakout to process that. We'll actually have you do an exercise. So the one thing I'd love you to do right now, if you're able, is to find a piece of paper and find a pen or pencil. We're going to come back to that in about 20 minutes, so I don't want to spring it on you then. But I want to go through a little bit about what Living Undivided looks like. It's an experience that happens across race. We require that at least 30% of the participants are Black, Indigenous, and people of color, so that there's robust conversation both in the large room and in small group breakouts. We have historical data and context. We have expert training on empathy, experiential and data-driven learning tools, and we're really focused on spiritual growth. This is ultimately a mission that we believe is rooted in what it means to follow Jesus. So every week there is grounding in scripture and grounding in our faith. And so as we go on to the next slide, we have 6 weeks. Each week is 2 hours long. There's a virtual experience right now. We're only doing Zoom in 2021, except for some pilots in October. We fully expect to have an in-room experience available in 2022. And we have breakouts where a lot of the conversation happens. You'll experience that and witness it tonight. And I mentioned the 30% minimum. Our group size can go up to 45 people for our next set of cohorts. We can go to the next slide. We're all about a learning experience. And a friend of mine, Michael Ray Matthews, talks about that we have moments of encounter. And sometimes those moments of encounter are things that we plan for, and sometimes they're not. But those moments of encounter disrupt us. They allow us to reimagine, and then they allow us to act differently in the world. And that's what we hope to happen in Living Undivided. This is a chosen decision on your part to have an encounter with one another and with God over a 6-week period across race and ethnicity. The first 3 weeks are really rooted in that encounter and disruption, the learning and conversation and story. Those second 3 weeks, we're really focusing on that reimagination, that hope, that energy, that hopefully compelling of the Holy Spirit to get out and act and live undivided in the world, which is actually what's going to make a difference. And the next slide shows the heart shake. We really think all these 3 things need to grow in the Living Undivided experience. One is our identity in Jesus. Our identity as people created in God's image. Our identity based on our race and ethnicity, and processing that story. Relationship. This is not an individual sport. This is a team sport. That's why we want to do this together. And then we really push on action. And we believe if our hearts for God's vision of racial solidarity, healing, and justice are to grow, we have to grow all 3 of these. And hopefully as you go through this experience, that will happen. We ask, what is God saying to you? And what are we going to do about it? We have ground rules, and our 6 participants tonight are going to live by these ground rules. We talk about I statements. This is not a time to preach at each other or talk about folks out there. Give grace. This is critical, and it's connected to something else we say that's not listed here, but Chuck says it every time. He'll probably break in and say it. We say expect to be offended. Expect to be offended by something. It may be something we say, it may be something someone else says, it may be something you say or think. Expect to be offended, but stay at the table. Practice empathy, and we train on this in week 2. And then listen to God, to one another, and yourselves. And take risks. be vulnerable, and then keep confidentiality, not on what you're learning, but folks share intimate stories. And unless you have permission to share those stories, we want you to hold those in confidence. So with that said, we want to get into this next 40 or 45 minutes of giving you kind of a sense of what an evening of undivided, living undivided might look like. And we're going to begin by hearing from our founder and CEO, Chuck Mingo, with a biblical grounding, part of which happens in week 1 of Living Undivided.
So I want to spend a few minutes giving you a faith grounding for this first week. We'll do this every week in Living Undivided because this is a spiritual journey rooted in the truth and grace of God's word and the work of Jesus to bridge the divide between us and himself. And it's that work that empowers us to bridge the divide with each other. So how do we move forward? Well, we have to begin by recognizing that racial division in the American church has deep and painful roots. I was born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where in 1786, Richard Allen and Absalom Jones, due to consistently experiencing racism in their church, finally decided to leave for good when white ushers pulled them up from their knees during prayer. It was after this painful experience that Allen started the first African-American denomination in the country, the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Now, I grew up in the Black church in Philadelphia, and I was nurtured not only spiritually, but culturally within its walls. I love the Black church, and I'm so thankful for my experience there. And yet, the first time I had a chance to worship in a cross-cultural setting, it was a revelation for me. There's just something special about seeing the multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-hued church of Jesus together. The fact that our country is so racially divided, and yet the church by design is meant to live undivided, means there's a God-sized opportunity. Now, why do I believe this so deeply? Because from Pentecost to Revelation, we see that God is about the work of bridging the divide. He's about the work of reconciliation. Think about it. The day of Pentecost is when God fulfills this 1,000-year-old prophecy that his very spirit would embody itself in people. Crazy. And what's the first thing the Holy Spirit empowers people to do? To speak languages they never learned, so they could broaden and make more inclusive the invitation to receive Jesus. And at the end of time, we see in Revelation John's prophetic vision that every language, every tongue, every nation, every tribe has people who are gathered together at the throne of God. These are people who still have distinct racial and cultural identities, but are united as one people at the throne of God. This is God's intent for his church. I think this is spelled out so clearly in Ephesians chapter 2. I love Ephesians. It's a great book of the Bible. And Ephesians 2 is a great chapter within that book. The first 10 verses of Ephesians 2 talk about how you and I are saved by grace, that it's not by works. We can't boast. It's not about us. It's all about what Jesus did on our behalf. But the second half of Ephesians 2 is about this miracle that Jesus has also worked. It says he has taken the two and made them one new humanity. This is talking about the split between Jew and Gentile. This was a split along racial lines. It was a split along ethnic lines. And what Jesus did through his death, burial, and resurrection is he brings those two together. It goes on to say that he broke down the dividing wall of hostility. This is all throughout the New Testament. You will see over and over again where part of the work and outworking of the gospel is bringing people together who otherwise would not see themselves as one. And that's exactly what needs to happen when it comes to race in our country. And it's exactly what the church needs to model first. See, we've been made to believe that somehow we're different from people who, through the blood of Christ, we're one with. And this is a way for us to recapture that truth and live it out, not just in our relationships, but to see it lived out in every system and every structure in our world. See, in Ephesians 2, Paul uses a unique word for the word new. I love the Greek language. It's super specific, and there's all kinds of words for the same word that we might have one word for in English. And he could have used the word neos here, which just means it's chronologically new. It's the next thing. But he actually uses the word kainos. And that word means this is a new thing that has never been seen before. See, friends, don't miss this. Don't miss this. God has worked a miracle that has never been seen before, where people who were ethnically diverse and therefore divergent, different, maybe even hostile, are able to come together and be one new humanity. It's a bond that's deeper than ethnicity, a bond that's deeper than race, a bond that is based on the blood and work of Jesus on yours and my behalf. And you are part of that miracle. Living Undivided is about working in and living into that miracle. It's an invitation, an opportunity, and yes, a responsibility to become the miracle of one new humanity that we already are through Christ. That's what roots us in this work, our gospel. Because our gospel is one of living undivided. Our gospel is one of reconciliation, and it is a gift we get to participate in bringing about.
All right. Thanks, Chuck, for those inspirational words. Natalie just dropped into the chat. We want to encourage you. We'll put this link out several times tonight. If you think your church, your organization would like to jump in to one of our upcoming cohorts, or you simply would like a conversation with some folks from our team, we would love for you to fill out that link. We will be getting in touch with you in the next few days and follow up with your questions and how you can get plugged in. Right now, we are excited to basically see what happens often every week in Undivided, and that is people get to have conversation across race around what they're learning and what they're reflecting on. So in response to Chuck's great teaching, we're simply going to ask our 6 small group participants tonight to answer the question, what inspires you to break through the dividing walls, to become one new humanity? And as you watch them, try to imagine what this might look like in your city, in your state, in your church, for these kind of conversations to be happening in this coming several months.
It's a great question. I'll answer. I think I just want to know. I feel like sometimes I can easily live in a little bubble. As many people as I know, as wide and diverse as my network is, I still have such a desire to learn more. And the only way I'm going to do that is to break through the dividing walls. I have to be intentional about that. That inspires me.
I'll go ahead and jump in. When I looked at that question, I thought about when it says, what inspires you to break through the dividing walls to become one new humanity? And I thought, well, the divided old humanity is not working out so well for us. That should be a ton of inspiration to try something different. Like, it's time for something different.
I'll jump in. What inspires me, and thank you ladies for sharing. I'll piggyback off of what both of you all said. It is truly just the environment that I live in. I have a diverse group of friends. I have 2 beautiful sons that are mixed with African American as well as Jordanian. So we've traveled to different countries. We've also lived in another country. And what I've learned is by observing humanity is that we all are the same at the end of the day. So through this George Floyd occurrence, it has inspired me to be better, do better, and say things to hopefully change all of our thinking. Because if we are going to walk like Jesus, I believe we have a lot of work to do as a humanity. So I believe it all circles back to one humanity, no matter what country, no matter where you live at, what's your economical stance. We just are one at the end of the day. So that's what inspires me.
So thank you, ladies. I guess it's time for the men to speak up here. So I will start us off. So for me, it is the work that I have done for a while, as well as the work that I currently do at my organization here in Cincinnati City Gospel Mission. We have a team. We call it the G328 team, which stands for Galatians 3:28. And a lot of you know Galatians 3:28, there is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male and female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. Biblically, I try to walk that out. And because Paul is talking to the Gentiles here. And what he's trying to tell them essentially is that we are all one united in Christ. And all of the things that are in that verse, these are earthly identifiers, but they hold no value between us and how our Father sees us. And I just love the fact that the way that our Father sees us is the way that I want each of us as believers to see each other.
Thank you, John. That was great. So I guess I got two inspirations. One is time. So I'd sat on the sideline of this for a while, and the time has come to get involved. And then the time hit me, I jumped in. And it was that I couldn't sit on the sideline. It wasn't going to fix itself. The other, and sorry, I've lost my voice a little bit today from talking a little too much, but the other is my children. I've got a 15-year-old and an 11-year-old, and have taught them, because division is learned, it just doesn't happen. And so I've taught them that there is no division, and want them to see that I lived that too. And so for them to be the next generation, I viewed it as an opportunity for me to do something, for them to do something, because we have to become undivided.
Brian, I can piggyback on that. That really resonates with me, what you were saying about, I'm kind of like, I'm a fixer. I want to fix things. And when I see something wrong, I fix it. And I can't just fix this. I see so much wrong going on. And I'm inspired to, I can't flip a switch and fix it. So if I can be just a little tiny ripple in the water that impacts other people by being involved in Undivided, by my actions, by changing. I have a very diverse group of friends. And so, yeah, I can check the box, right? But I have extended family, and there is racism in my extended family. And when I am around those people who I love and respect, it can be very awkward. It can be uncomfortable. I've walked away. I've walked away instead of engaging. And so I'm inspired to be more engaged. I'm inspired to stand up and speak up instead of walking away and shaking my head, whether it's in the news, whether it's at a family gathering. That's what inspires me to be. I want to be part of that miracle of the one new humanity.
Donna, I love that. I really appreciate hearing you say that, but I mean, that can be scary. I mean, I don't know, in the workplace, somebody wants to, if somebody is saying something that is wrong, like, how do you stand up and say that and break through that fear? I mean, how do you do that? Sounds like you're really capable of doing that, and I appreciate it. So help me understand that. How do you do that?
Thanks. I'm still learning. But I think the first thing that is needed is to recognize that there is another option. The only option I've ever known is to shake my head and say, but he's my uncle. I just have to respect I have to respect him, and I don't really know where he's coming from. And that's how it's been in the past. And now I have to be in a place where I can say, I love you, but that's not okay to say. And I love you, but that's not okay. I don't want to be around that. And let's talk about, and to get involved and to be, like I said, uncomfortable or awkward. And just to not let it happen, not walking away is as bad as doing it yourself, if you ask me. That's my opinion. Yeah.
That's good. Thank you.
Anna, thank you for being so vulnerable.
Yeah.
I run into some of the same challenges. Before I used to not say as much, even as being a African-American woman myself. In the workplace, I would just allow people to say things or just shake my head. Or even my family members. Now I just hold everybody accountable, whether it's Black, white, Asian, whatever race they are. Now I kind of, for me, it makes me feel sad. So I lean in more and I say, not on my watch. I'm willing to take the hit. What I always say nowadays, because I'm so passionate about this topic, I am willing to take the hit. And what I mean when I say that, when I speak up, I think before I speak. I'm very careful about my words, and I ask more questions, holding the person accountable without blame or pointing a finger. And I engage them in a way where they have to talk about it. you don't get a choice as long, or just step away. You're going to walk away, because I'm not going to, most likely I'm not going to walk away. I really encourage people to kind of step into that space so that they can see, connect their, I always say it's a thought with the action, and try to connect to that feeling, so that I can kind of get them to lean towards acknowledging what's going on in that moment.
I have a question for you guys. You all mentioned your children, and I teach. In fact, I see one of my former students on here, and I think it was Brian, you mentioned like you want to do this for your children. And I think about Dr. King when he said, I want my children to grow up in a place where they will be judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. And I'm thinking like he wanted a better future for his children, and yet here we are. What is it about this moment that feels like this is the time when change can really come, when it comes to the future that you want to help to create so that your children can live in a better world?
Yeah, Latoya, I'll take a stab at that. I think what helps me in this moment, and I view the moment that we're in is an inflection point in a lot of sense, and a lot of people talk about the children. They will lead us, right? And but a lot of people also say that this is a lost generation, and for like not the first time, but probably the time during after George Floyd, when I looked on television and saw the people that were in the marches, these were younger people. That excited me about that. I thought that this would be a time that would be different. Not only did I see younger people, but I saw so many different races and ethnicities, not only in the United States, but across all, I mean, even abroad, right? And so the children, I think in a lot of cases, and even in our own city, the people that were arrested downtown, that they had people putting them on bus, they were kids. These were teenagers that were doing that. So that's something that helps keep me inspired to continue to do this work, that I see things that I hadn't seen in the past. And a lot of what I'm seeing are our kids that are speaking up a lot differently than we have in the past.
I think that's, John, thank you. I want to add on to that. Why now could be the time. I mean, as we all know, now we've got an opportunity to communicate faster and more broadly than ever before. Unfortunately, we can communicate with misinformation and disinformation in that same respect. But what our children and what we have the capability to do to spread this, not only through our cities, country, nation, and across the world, it can be done in a moment. And it's almost to me that it's like, it's a logic switch, and I'm just waiting for it to happen. That someday somebody will recognize how logical this is and how illogical anything else might be. Because I live the same situation with everybody, either coworkers who still say the ridiculous, or family who still have racial tendencies that, you know, are offensive. But it's just a matter of logic.
All right. So, Brian, if this was a real Living Undivided experience, we probably would have cut off mid-sentence. So one of the universals of Living Undivided is the breakout groups always want more time. And we need to keep things going. Conversations can happen outside. I encourage the 6 of you to trade emails with each other and continue these conversations. In fact, we'll do a breakout here in another moment. We want to go now to an activity. And so what we're going to do is we call this an echo chamber exercise. Every week in Undivided, we do an exercise. So what I want to ask you to do now is get out a piece of paper, and I'm doing mine, and basically you can put me in the middle, a little circle, and then 10 small circles around it. And
Roy, I'll just confess, this might be the hardest part of Living Undivided for me. To get the 10 circles all even is really challenging for me. Well done.
Yeah, there you go. And Chuck knows this is not my strength, is drawing. Actually, everyone now knows that. But if you can do this, we need you to do that. If you have that, please take about 30 more seconds and simply do that drawing on a piece of paper. If for some reason you don't have paper and pen, what we want to ask you to do, we're going to read 10 statements. This is the rudimentary way to do it. Every time one is true, stick up a digit. So you'll have either 0 to 10 That's the hack. We don't advertise that during real Living Undivided, but if you're in a pinch, the 10 fingers can often work as a substitute. So what I'm going to do in just a minute, and we certainly want the 6 of you to do this, but we want to invite everybody to do this. And I'm going to read a set of 10 statements. And if this is true for you, we want you to circle in or darken that number for that question from 1 to 10. And if it's no, keep it blank. And if this is important, don't overthink it. We're not grading you. There's not a right and wrong answer. It's simply a mirror that we hold up to ourselves that this exercise allows. If you don't know, leave it blank, okay? But if you know and it's true for you, we want you to circle that in. All right? So we'll give you another 10 seconds to get the circles drawn or get your fingers exercised and stretched out. And then we're going to read through these 10 statements. I'll read each of them twice. Again, if it's true for you, circle it in. The first answer is the right answer. Okay, number 1. Within your last 5 personal text messages, there are people who do not look like you. Within the last 5 personal text messages, your last 5, there are people who do not look like you. Number 2, you get your news from 2 or more outlets, or you follow people on social media that have different points of view than yourself. You get your news from 2 or more outlets, or you follow people on social media that have different views than yourself. Number 3, one of your physicians, dentist, primary care doctor, eye doctor, etc., is of a different race or ethnicity than yourself. Number 3, one of your physicians, dentist, primary care doctor, eye doctor, etc., is a different race or ethnicity than yourself. Number 4, you have at least 3 friends that you know voted for the quote unquote other candidate or political party. You have at least 3 friends that you know voted for the quote unquote other candidate or political party. Number 5, in the last 3 months, you have read, watched, or listened to a piece of entertainment authored, directed, or created by someone who does not look like you. And if you're unsure, don't shade it in. In the last 3 months, you have read, watched, or listened to a piece of entertainment authored, directed, or created by someone who does not look like you. Number 6, you have not deleted, unfollowed, or stopped talking to someone because they have different views than yourself. Number 6, you have not deleted, unfollowed, or stopped talking to someone because they have different views than yourself. Number 7, you have a close friend that shares different religious views than you. You have a close friend that has different religious views than you. Number 8, the majority of people you interact with as you work, live, or play do not look like you. The majority of people you interact with as you work, live, or play do not look like you. Number 9, you live in a neighborhood where more than 50% of the people do not look like you. Number 9, you live in a neighborhood where more than 50% of the people do not look like you. And Nia, I see your question. I'll come back to it, but let me do number 10. Final question. You actively spend time with people who are in a different socioeconomic status than yourself. Number 10, You actively spend time with people who are in a different socioeconomic status than yourself. And Nia, number one, was within your last 5 personal text messages. There are people who don't look like you. Number 2, one last time, you get your news from 2 or more outlets, or you follow people on social media that have opposite points of view. Number 3, one of your physicians, dentist, primary care doctor, eye doctor, etc., is a different race or ethnicity than yourself. Number 4, you have at least 3 friends that you know voted for the other candidate or political party. Number 5, in the last 3 months, you have read, watched, or listened to a piece of entertainment authored, directed, or created by someone who does not look like you. Number 6, you have not deleted, unfollowed, or stopped talking to someone because they have different views than yourself. Number 7, you have a close friend that shares different religious views than your own. Number 8, the majority of people you interact with as you work, live, or play do not look like you. Number 9, you live in a neighborhood where more than 50% of people don't look like you. And finally, number 10, you actively spend time with people who are in a different socioeconomic status than yourself. Chuck?
Troy, every time I do this exercise, there is always something that strikes me. And there's an opportunity for growth, and sometimes there's opportunity for celebration. And so I just want to say, if you've done this and this is your first time doing this, just to emphasize what you said, we do these things in Living Undivided to create a mirror and to create more opportunity to do what's going to happen in a moment, which is to give you an opportunity to get back into small groups and just discuss how this is impacting you. And our panel is going to do that in a moment. But before they do, I have to note that Mitchell, I love your line. Mitchell said, if nothing else, it's been a great reminder that I need to find a new dentist. So you're welcome. You're welcome. But what we want to do is just do a group poll. We're going to use the powers of Zoom to do this. So go ahead and add up how many of those circles you shaded in. And again, this isn't, it's anonymous. We're not going to know who did what, and just want to get a sense. So go ahead and do that. We'll give you 20, 30 seconds just to count up the number of circles and then tell us how many of those circles did you fill in.
And Chuck, you might have to scroll down if you're an overachiever and have like 8 or 9 plus, it may not show up. You may have to scroll down.
That's right. That's good. And again, just answer that poll question. And I'm sure you're dying to know the answer to that. And we will let you know in a minute. But first, we want to give you a flavor of what happens when this experience takes place in Living Undivided, which is that we get to hear from our COO of Undivided, Brittany Wade. Let's watch her video right now.
Last week, we did a deep dive into the past to learn more about how our country is rooted in a history of injustice. As we continue to learn this week, we will focus on realizing how these roots have had an impact on our relationships and community. As we think about our needs, our psychological needs, the need for physical safety, love, the need to grow our self-esteem and self-actualization, we can see how our relationships and our community are intertwined into each layer. Food, shelter, security, friendships, respect, and purpose are all connected to the people that we interact with every day. They influence us, and we influence them. When we surround ourselves with people that think, act, look, and have the same experiences as us, the level of influence around us becomes limited. We have a limited diversity of inputs into not only what we are thinking, but how we are thinking. We lose a variety of influence that is instrumental in helping us to grow, learn, and empathize. This limited diversity of influence is called an echo chamber. An echo chamber is an environment in which a person encounters only beliefs or opinions that coincide with their own, so that their existing views are reinforced and alternative ideas are not considered. When we limit the scope of our understanding, we are rooting ourselves into a cycle of misinformation, and we're distorting our perspectives. The distorting of our perspectives puts us into a place where when we hear information that reinforces what we already know, we take it as truth. Not because it is necessarily factual, but because it's the thing we have heard the most or the thing we heard last. When I was working at a corporation, I used to give a lot of introductions and speeches to our organization and our clients. On one occasion, I was working with a colleague who happened to be a dear friend of mine, more on that in a second, to put on a company-wide event for a lot of company executives around the city. We, alongside about 5 others, worked for months to pull this event off. It was a lot of late nights, weekends, some disagreements, and a lot of hard work. But the day came and we pulled off a fantastic event. Everyone provided us with great feedback on how we put on a premier event for our clients on behalf of our company. All of the feedback was glowing, except one piece that was directed right at me. As I was wrapping up the event and providing acknowledgements, with the best of intentions, I wanted to individually thank each one of my teammates. So I asked each one to stand up and be recognized. They all stood to a roaring applause, except one. My dear friend who uses a wheelchair. I was so caught up in ending the night well that it never even registered me what I had done. After the event, she came up to me and said, "You embarrassed me. You made me feel like I didn't belong today. I have worked alongside you for months, and you didn't think about me today when you were speaking." She was absolutely correct. While my intentions may have been good, I wanted to recognize everyone. While I may have been aware of other instances and examples to be cognizant of in our relationship, I had completely missed the mark on this one. My echo chambers had me not considering a friend's reality of having a different perspective and a different lived experience in this context. She is my friend, and I am still biased. I chose to let my existing views be reinforced and didn't consider another alternative idea, and I hurt someone else. As Chuck mentioned, Undivided is a place to build relationships and is also a place to step outside of your echo chamber to consider alternative ideas. Alternative ideas that may not be present among your friends, among your family, among your favorite news outlet, your social media platforms, your neighbors, and even your church. Unless you have intentionally and actively stepped out of your echo chambers, this hasn't happened. Intentionally and actively are key. Even if we have the relationships, if we don't intentionally and actively work to hear and understand those alternate perspectives, those relationships will not bring us outside of what we know. If my dear friend had never pulled me aside, I would still be in relationship with her and I would still be in my echo chambers. If I had chosen to become defensive and shut down, instead of hearing her and taking in another viewpoint, I'd still be in my echo chamber. I wish every alternative viewpoint story in my life went like this, but I'm still on a journey. I'm still inside some echo chambers. Undivided is a place where you have the opportunity to learn from others, to hear about different experiences, opportunities, disadvantages, and viewpoints. We may not be able to learn in any other place. Take advantage, take some risks. Today, we're going to explore what our personal echo chambers look like, and then learn what empathy is. Learning how to truly see and care for those who have a different background and worldview than us.
Such an honest story, such a vulnerable story from Brittany, and one I think all of us can relate to, and one that really tees up the conversation on echo chambers. And so we're going to show the results of the poll. We had all of you fill out the poll, and if you want to take a look and scroll, just get a sense of where people landed in terms of how many of those circles they were able to shade and fill in. And again, the point here is for it to be a mirror and an opportunity that causes you to do more reflection and creates conversation in the small group. So I'm gonna go stage left, as they say, and invite our panelists to have a conversation based on their own journey and their own results, coming out of the echo chambers exercise?
I'll go ahead and start. I was at the beginning, I was like, yeah, I remember when I did this, I got all 10 until I got to the unfollowed or deleted somebody for a political view. And then I was like, dang, 2020 did it to me. How about you guys?
I hear you, Latoya. It's very 2020 was a rough one, especially when it comes to like political views. I tried to hang in there as best I could, but yeah, I really like doing this experience too, because like Chuck said just a few minutes ago, it is holding that mirror up in front of you. And I never really thought of being in an echo chamber. I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to be that person. I'm really involved a lot in my church, and I feel like when I look at this, when I see my echo chamber, I think I am in a holy bubble. I would say I call it a holy bubble. Like I only hang out with people who go to church with me or believe the same things that I believe, and I don't know if I've ever. I don't know. I'm searching myself. I don't know that I've ever said, "Oh, I don't think we're going to be friends because you're not a Christ follower," or, "Oh, I don't think I want to be a part of that group because that's from a different church." I don't think I've ever said those words out loud, but I have to search myself and see, have I turned away from that? Have I moved away? Have I not opened that door? So I don't know. Does anybody else have that kind of feeling or that kind of experience in that whole holy bubble echo chamber?
Yeah, Don, I really appreciate that because when Troy was asking the questions, I had to really intentionally think because it's like, oh, wait, because I'm like, oh, yeah. And then it's like, hold on a minute. Am I really being intentional? What about my neighborhood? What about people that have different religious views than I do? Social economic differences, So I've really had to think through this exercise and, just thinking that I can mark off because I know one person, it's not the same, it's like, am I doing life with people who are different than me? And it's really eye-opening. And I love this exercise. It continues to be eye-opening.
Denise, I like when you said it was eye-opening because for me, the first time I did it, I was much younger when I first did Undivided. But this time when I look at the circles, it really makes me sad because this circle, I didn't circle filling in 9 because I'm so great and I'm so open. I filled in 9 because my education, my everything about my life places me in a realm that's outside of most people that look like me. Mm-hmm. And so I don't have a choice but to be around different people because I'm the one of 5 people, Black people that work in my school. Okay. And I'm one of a few who live in my neighborhood. Right. Most of my peers are my colleagues. And so I would have liked to say, you know what, I can't feel in this one, but my circle kind of makes me feel a little isolated, and that's just being completely vulnerable. And I think it speaks to some of the systems that are in place. I should be able to be around more people that look like me, but the way the system is set up, unfortunately, I'm not. So I agree with you. It's eye-opening.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome,
Latoya. Latoya, that was thank you for sharing that, because I went through, I didn't have the 9 that you got, but I had 8. And then I thought about, like, why do I have the 8? And it's because as a Black person, I don't have options, just similar to the comment that you made that some of my white friends and peers have. And so I'm forced to be around and learn how to work, live, play in a system where I have to interact and engage others. And so I didn't I didn't pat myself on the back, the fact that I had the 8. I kind of looked at the ones that I didn't answer and like said, why? Like, for instance, I hadn't deleted anybody or unfollowed somebody, but I have chosen not to talk to somebody because I'm like, not today. I'm not going to go there. I'm not doing that today because I can choose not to talk to somebody, right? And I've chosen to do that sometimes. So thanks for sharing.
I want to piggyback on what LaToya and John, I was actually going to wait to respond, but because I was having some different, I actually had a reaction to this. I always do when we do these surveys. It's like it interrupts my system, my nervous system when we do these experiments. And I have a similar experience with you all. Like, yes, I have a very diverse group that I interact with, which I'm really grateful for that. But I also, guys, I went through the phase, and I'm going through that now through who am I and what am I, because I thought it was okay. As a Black woman, most of my friends were Caucasian, and people I work with, so I was a pleaser. So I didn't say anything. If I disagreed with someone, again, so these questions are great questions, but at the same time, I didn't challenge people. So I would, as a Black woman, I actually wish I had more Black friends because I didn't know who I was, because I was just mostly around Caucasian people. And that just kind of struck me through all this. Like, I want to get closer to my culture. It's not a racial thing. It's just more of a cultural thing. I love having a diverse group, but now I'm pushed through these experiences to connect more with African-American people because I've struggled and I never said anything about it and I didn't know how to deal with it.
Thank you. 3 of you. Thank you for that.
No, that's I mean, it's interesting because when you look at it from different perspectives, from mine, I seem to be stuck at a 7. It's what I've done. I think the last 3 times I've done this, although 15 years ago of a different exercise, I think it was the bead exercise at that point. I had like 1 bead. So I have improved. But when I look at some of the things, that I don't have to deal with, or that I have to make major changes to do, like my neighborhood, the people around me, the place that I work, like everything seems to be overly Caucasian. And to change that is a seismic change. And I do want to make that change at some point, and I will probably make that change at some point. I have no problem unfollowing people. I will get my news from different outlets. I do have friends who have differing viewpoints and vote differently than me. That's okay, but I have no problem unfollowing people. Or realizing that there are friendships that are not worth continuing because, if you can't have dialogue, if it's just shouting at one another or shouting into the void, to me, I think that's worthy of my unfollow. It doesn't have to be everybody else's, but I'm comfortable. I would love to get to a 9 because I want to experience more, because I know that there's more to experience than what I have been able to.
Can I, Brian, that really resonates with me, Brian, about changing. If I can just throw something out there, and I know we're not going to have an answer to this tonight, but it makes me think, I look at the echo chamber, I look at my life, I listen to you guys speaking, and I think, I don't want to just check the box and say, okay, now I have a friend who's Muslim. And now I have, let's say I have 4 Asian friends, and I need another Native American friend. But I want it to be organic and not, I think it comes down to maybe like a change, not just a change of your actions, but a change of your heart, maybe. And I wish we had time to unpack that a little bit more, because I really would like to hear what you guys have to say about that. But yeah, so just how that change is organic versus checking a box.
Roy, are you going to cut us off, or are we allowed to say one more thing?
We'll give you your 60-second warning. There's a clock ticking in the corner.
So all I would say is, I think on that, Donna, that's fantastic. My view on, remember, when things are organic in nature, it's intentional that they're organic in nature. At least what we make and what you buy at a store that's organic. So I think I need to be more intentional, and that's probably it. I did want to add too, on your church bubble. My church bubble actually is what let me fill these in, but that's the product of going back to church in your 40s.
Great. Well, thank you to the great panel, Jazzy, LaToya, Brian, Denise, John, Donna. Did I get everybody? I think I did. Thanks so much. And there were a lot of great questions in the chat. And I just want to double back to this point that we're trying to make with these, is that these are simply a way to examine and reflect. When we put experiences together in Living Undivided, it's not with a sense of creating judgment or shame or right or wrong. It's a way to generate the kind of, which I thought was an amazingly rich conversation that we just got to witness. I feel honored to have been allowed to witness that conversation. And I think that's a really critical piece we want to highlight. I do want to share quickly just some ways that you can get involved. Natalie just put a link in the chat. We're going to drop that again. We would love you in your organization to join us. We will have cohorts launching again in late July and again in October. We would love for you, your church, your organization to be part of one of those cohorts. We truly believe that Living Undivided is a game changer. And a lot of times in the church world and in the world at large, when I talk to folks, they say, well, I don't know if the timing is right. And one of my favorite quotes, and some of you know, I'm a Martin Luther King scholar. I worked at the King Papers, but I've come back to that tried and true from the letter from a Birmingham jail, that when King says wait almost has always meant never. So we want to encourage you not to wait, not to delay. There are people in your congregations, in your organizations that are more ready now for these conversations than they've ever been before, but this moment may not last. So what would it look like to lead boldly? We would love for you to sign up. There's also a place in there for you to simply get in a conversation with some of our leaders and explore what this might look like in your context. I also just want to say that one thing I want to encourage you is think about what God has done and impacted you with this evening. And who are a couple people you're going to talk to? Maybe it's a family member. Maybe it's your pastor. Maybe it's a dear friend. Maybe it's your small group or Sunday school class. Where are you going to have a conversation and share a little bit of what you experienced, and hopefully some way that the Holy Spirit touched you this evening. Think about who that person is. Maybe if you have your sheet of paper, maybe write down a name or two. If you're doing the digits, you'll have to be a little more creative. I guess you could write on your finger if you're in that mode. But seriously, think about who can you reach out to and have a conversation with. We just think that is so critical. There will be an email tomorrow. We are going to share this video, this recording with you. We want you to share it widely. The link for signing up to have a conversation with us or to sign up for one of the experiences, hopefully in July, if not then in October, that will come out to you as well. What we want to do now is a couple things. We want to show a quick testimonial video of some folks who have been through Undivided. And then we're going to come back and have some Q&A. And Chuck and I are going to be around until 8:30. We'll close out in prayer at about 8:30. We really would love for you to hang around. We've been chronicling and queuing up questions. We may even pull some of our small group into some of these answers if they're not careful. And we will talk, and I see the question about costs, so we'll talk about some of that on the other end. But let's watch some videos of some testimonials. Then we'll spend about 25 minutes or so in what we call the after party, having some Q&A together. Thanks so much.
I would go through Undivided because I think it's an opportunity to have conversations that we wouldn't normally have in an everyday life, that causes you to grow and to think about things differently.
I really didn't see how I was part of the problem until I went through Undivided. I came into Undivided thinking that I needed to be somebody that was going to help and somebody that was going to fix.
Before Undivided, I never thought of like, oh, I'm not racist. I have all friends that are diverse. But for people that look like me, who's not black and white, I found it to be very easy and comfortable for me to just stay with the status quo because it didn't really affect me when it comes to race.
I've always been in conversations about race, and I've always been interested in faith and growing my Christianity. But as far as combining those two things, specifically in a multiracial context where there's going to be black people, white people, and anything in between, it was just a situation where I had to get off the sidelines and get in a conversation and tell the truth that comes from my perspective, and also listen to the truth from other people's perspective. And then at the same time, call out what is not real.
I didn't know what I didn't know. And it helped me just kind of realize what I needed to learn, the different areas where I was just like completely blindsided. I had no idea what other people's experiences were like.
Yeah, so the church's role in perpetuating racism is really a long, dark history, honestly, specifically in our American context. If you look today, I mean, it's really not different than when Martin Luther King said, Sunday morning is the most segregated hour. And that is still true today.
As a church, we have been complicit and lazy, and this conversation, this work has to show up in every fabric of who we are. We have to live it, we have to teach it, and no longer can Christians be seen as part of the problem.
I think a lot of us engage conversations with our head, and it just goes away. But man, if we sit in it long enough to where, again, it goes in our heart, where we care about it enough, eventually when we see any racism or anything that is unjust or wrong, we're gonna react because it's in our gut, it's wrong, we're gonna react to it.
I think that's one of the best things about Undivided is that it lets us all approach this conversation with a mutual understanding that we're all coming in with grace.
The body of Christ is not uniform. The body of Christ is actually beautiful and diverse in many ways. And so I think the more we embrace that, the more we reflect the heart of Jesus.
And that would be my hope for all of us, that we could engage with one another in a way that we are seeking the reflection of God in that person.
Awesome. Well, Chuck, I know we've got questions flying on the chat. I see you've been trying to respond, doing a better job of that.